Okay, we are live. This is Dr. Mounce. We've got a lot of friends here with us tonight. We hope you enjoy the show. And here's Larry with a special introduction, hopefully.
All Things Unexplained. Hosted by Dr. Mounce.
Let's face it, we were always ready to roll without him anyway.
CJ Derringer.
Ain't nobody perfect, right?
And Smitty Neebs.
I've never planned out hardly anything my whole life. I just freeball.
Featuring Cajun Man.
I'm just old nobody, somebody looking for somebody.
All right. Hello, all you unexplained ones out there. This is CJ Derringer coming to you with my co-hosts, Dr. Mounce and Smitty Neebs. And we have lots of fun guests joining us tonight. We are testing out some new software, and we wanted to bring some of our old favorites on the show with us to share a little bit about themselves and what they do, and also go over a few hot topics that are in the news currently. So I'm just going to go around and chat with each of you, have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do. So we'll start with Blake. This is Blake Best. Hey, friend, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, CJ and Smitty. It's a pleasure. It's my first time meeting you. You're kind of like the Loch Ness Monster.
I'm
I
still.
only see shadows and bits and pieces of you, but thank you, Dr. Mounce and Cheryl and Becky and everybody out there watching on social media land. I don't know what to say. I write about creepy, scary things. I'm an actor. I do scoring and music stuff. If it's creepy, I'm all over it. So, yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. Give us a title of a book that you've written recently.
Well, I did recently publish the award-winning Freddy Krueger origin novel, Razor's Edge, which is like a backstory on the Freddy Krueger character. But the new book I put out is Whispers in the Woods. This is like a Southern Appalachian ghost story gone wrong. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. That sounds right up our listeners' alley. And if people want to check out your music or your acting or your books, where can they go to find you?
They can go to YouTube for the acting stuff. I was just in a hit film called He Comes to Kill. It's on YouTube streaming free. It's also available on DVD, Blu-ray, and then music stuff. Just hit me up on my website, blakebestauthor.wixsite.com. There's a little music section. There's like 10 albums worth of stuff. So there's plenty of stuff. If you like metal, acoustic, instrumental, all that good stuff. So I'm all over the place.
Wonderful. Well, we are happy to have you. And I do know that Blake is master of all things cryptid. I wasn't on the show when you came on last time, but you guys were able to talk about just about any cryptid creature that's ever existed, most that I have never even heard of. So it's quite an impressive knowledge that you have. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And then next we have Becky Cook. We had Becky on last year to chat with us about her Bigfoot novels. She's chatted with lots of people who have true Bigfoot stories that she has compiled. So Becky, tell us a little bit about where you are and what you do.
I am in Idaho, and I collect stories about true life sightings of Bigfoot all over Idaho. I've just got my fourth book out. Bigfoot Lives in Idaho. Yeah, let me see if I can align this here. Anyway, this is the biggest book, and it's a compilation of all of the other books, plus about 30 other new stories from people I've interviewed all over the state of Idaho. Everything from the sound, the smell, to what they found, some pictures. We've mapped a bunch of things out. That was one of the most common things that people said is, we want to see some maps. I said, they walk, right? They're not always found in the same spot, for selfies or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah. So your books have some of the wildest stories that I have heard. I mean, just wonderful and wild stories about Bigfoot. Are you now the person that people come to? Like, do people reach out to you from all across the nation and say, like, I had a Bigfoot sighting, I have a story for you? Or are you reaching out to people to get their stories?
Kind of both. I hear a lot from people who I've already interviewed. a lot of people I've interviewed will then have somebody else talk to them and say, hey, I heard this really cool thing and I saw this somebody. And so they're like, you should talk to Becky. So they send them over and I get a chance to interview them and collect more information. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are so happy to have you again with us here. And then we have our friend Cheryl, who we met by chance, really. Was that last year or 2 years ago now? It must have been 2 years ago.
Oh my. I think
2 years
yeah.
ago. Yeah, we were doing a story on a pilot that had seen something outside of his window, and I had commented in a chat room, and Cheryl said, I've seen something out my window and I have pictures. And I said, what? Excuse me, can you please come and show this to me? And this still to this day is one of the most maddening things to me, is that your story hasn't, like, nobody seems to be as shocked as they should be about what you saw. And and then we discovered that you have a whole business as well of a crystal mine out in Arkansas. So tell us a little bit about, what you saw on the plane that day and what you and your husband Orville do at Board Camp Crystal Mine.
Okay. Well, I usually fly out west. I'm in Arkansas, like you said, and I fly out west usually in the holidays to see the family. And flying home, I believe it was January 8th of 2021, the GPS ended up saying that we were near, I think it was Lake Powell, Utah, down in the, that'd be the southeast corner. We were flying over there. And during that time, there wasn't that many people on the plane. We each had basically our own row, and I was sitting near the window seat like I always do. And I was glanced up, and I saw what appeared to be maybe a missile. And I mean, when you're up in a plane, you can't exactly judge how many feet it is away from your window, but it was close enough that it was bizarre, and I was able to get a photograph of that, which I don't know if Tim, you want to show it now, or you can, or do I need to click on it, the picture? But anyway,
I'll add that up, and we'll pull it back up later.
Okay,
as
there it
we
is.
go into some Jeremy Corbell stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's what I saw, and we can wait on that for when we talk about that kind of stuff. But UFO, I don't know. But what happened in 2012, my husband Orville and I, he couldn't make it tonight, but hopefully next time. He and I opened a crystal mine in Arkansas. I mean, there's quartz crystals all over our area, and there's other mines, but we just wanted the public to be able to come out and dig their own crystals and just relax, enjoy nature and all that. That was 2012. And as far as anything paranormal, we just thought, all that's on TV. We never had any paranormal experiences or anything until 2017. And that was our first paranormal eye-opening. We basically were looking over our very rural property. There's no big highways, freeways, or anything. We're looking out in the woods, and 3 huge beams of light appeared on our property. They shot up about 300 feet into the sky. They lasted about 8 to 10 seconds, and then everything went black. That initiated, when we reported that, it initiated a MUFON investigation. MUFON came on our property, did their investigation, had incredible high readings for magnetism and some radiation, I guess. And they were all excited because we had physical evidence that something strange happened. And of course, we're still in disbelief. MUFON actually suggested a craft probably hovered over our property and created the 3 beams of light. Maybe they were harvesting crystal energy. And at the time, we're thinking, that's really whacked out, because we didn't believe any of all that. After that, though, we started having, MUFON came and went. Actually, Josh Gates of Expedition Unknown came out and filmed. And he had an experience as well that he got on film. And you can Google and probably find his show. But since then, we were seeing orbs of light, other strange beams, weird lights in the dark, in the woods. And then the Native Americans started to come and show us signs of Sasquatch. So all you cryptid people, you got to come visit us.
Yes.
Okay? All of you.
Yeah, wonderful. If somebody did want to visit, what is your website?
Oh, yes. It's boardcampcrystalmine.com. And that's BOARD, Camp crystalmine.com. And we'll tell you about it. So we do the crystal digging. And after all this paranormal stuff started, we also have what's called the Unexplained tours. And we invite the public. They're able to come on our tours. We take them a walk in the woods, show them the weird stuff. Sometimes there's other amazing things, phenomena that does happen when our guests are present. Like, I don't know if you'd call them rock drops, rock throws. Usually these are beautiful crystals, and they're like meant for our guests. I'm just trying to hurry up and say this in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have phenomena and we have contact. I guess it's contact. I don't know what else to call it. They're contacting us and our guests, and we have about an 80 to 90% experience rate on our tours. So, the ETs, the Bigfoot, whatever the beings are, whatever the entities are, we were startled by them at first, but they've never been threatening. And so we're actually, I guess you could say we're friends with them now. My husband has had Bigfoot sightings, about 8 on our property, and I've had 2. And anyway, I don't know what to say except, our thing is come experience it for yourself and see what happens.
Yes. I'm still getting up the nerve to do that.
But anyway, thank you. That was I guess that's us in a nutshell right now. Thank you for having us on the show.
That Becky needs to interview you guys for her next
Oh, yes.
book.
I would love that.
And Becky, forgive me, I didn't have you share your link. Where can we find your books?
Oh, bigfootlives.com. My website needs some work, but yeah, my webmaster's been busy.
Well, we honestly, I think that the two of you probably have a lot that you could talk about, and I need a whole nother show on that. So,
oh yes, you're officially invited, Becky, as well as all the others who are here, of course.
I think that our retreat, the All Things Unexplained retreat, needs to be at Board Camp Crystal Mine.
That would be perfect.
We'll bring all of our guests.
We're on. CJ sounds like an organizer, so we'll let you organize it. CJ.
I think that I am. I think that's probably what I do best is organize and connect people. So
she has that reputation.
Well, outside of doing our podcast, our hosts also have a few projects that they've been working on. So Smitty, I know you're working on a book currently, correct?
Yeah, it's being published in June. It's called Mississippi Bear Hunter Holt Collier Guiding Teddy Roosevelt in a Lifetime of Adventure. And Holt was a slave who was born in Mississippi Delta in 1847. He ended up killing over 3,000 bears in his lifetime. He fought in the Civil War. And then he went and guided Roosevelt on the famous bear hunt that produced the teddy bear. So that's what my book's about. It comes out in June. It'll be available on Amazon, in Barnes and Noble stores, Goodreads, a lot of different websites. I also have Little Fish, Big Splash, which is a religious study book that's available on Amazon.com. But I'm excited. It's really the first mainstream book I've had published is the one about Holt Collier. So it's about Arcadia and the History Press. It's going to be coming this summer. I don't even know how much it's going to cost yet or anything, but I'll get all that information to you. They're working on the cover. The publishers are working on cover this week, and I should have a cover hopefully by next week at some point in time. All of the writing's been done. So I've done my part. Now I just got to sit and wait, which is the hardest part.
Yes. Well, congratulations on that. And I hear that book is free to your co-hosts. So we'll be waiting for our copy.
Yeah.
That's how much it costs us.
See my shirt too. It says history teacher, like a regular teacher, only way cooler.
Definitely.
Sure.
Especially more than a math teacher, by the way.
Oh boy. Speaking of the math teachers, heading to you, Dr. Mounce. Tell us a little bit about your projects that you've got going on.
Well, there's just a few things like my friend Blake there. We just have a few thousand irons in the fire. But before I talk about that, I want to give a shout out to listener James Doran, also known as Divine Sovereign Messenger. And he passed along this message to all us tonight, us 6 gathered here, that he said, love, thank all of us for all we do. Appreciate all your work for awakening the mass consciousness on Gaia divine love and blessings to all of us. By the way,
Thank you.
if you want to support this show, you can support us on Venmo at bigfoot.com. We hope all of you will stay tuned because we have a lot of exciting things coming up as well. We have a psychic Bigfoot expert coming up soon. I believe that's March 30th by the name of Kiwanis Lapsaritas. He's in deep Washington State. We have a very famous, I would say, dare say, the most famous UFO abductee of all time coming on the show in April. His name is Travis Walton.
Oh, wow.
They made a movie about him called Fire in the Sky. There's also Travis Walton documentary, and the producer of that documentary will be joining us as well. So to my knowledge, this will be the first time ever that Travis will be live online and our listeners can ask him questions and post comments, and it should be a pretty historic night. And also, I can only give a little teaser for another upcoming show in April, but if you're a fan of the History Channel show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, starring one Dr. Travis Taylor, multiple PhDs in astrophysics and engineering, lead scientist of the government's UFO agency, or at least one of them. They may or may not be coming on with us too in April. So just a little teaser there. Look for an official announcement of that soon. You can check out my best-selling Bigfoot children's books on squatching.com, along with my other audio writings. I also have some audio books out there. You can check those out on squatching.com. They're all available on Audible, including one. Blake would appreciate this. So I delved into some horror fiction on Audible, and I narrated a little book that was right up my alley called Killer Kudzu. So it's about a genetically modified kudzu plant that goes on a rampage. And we already know that's quite possible in rural Georgia and rural Alabama and rural Mississippi and all around the deep South. And that's exactly what it did. You do not want to run into that kudzu. Trust me, that's on Audible as well. But you can find all that on squatching.com. And of course, we have the podcast. We appreciate all our guests coming on with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, since we have such knowledgeable guests on our show, we wanted to delve into a few topics that have been in the press lately that we think you might have some opinions about. So the first one, and forgive me, I don't actually know anything about this yet. So this will be new to me, but apparently there is a Nessie-like creature in Mexico. Do we have a news article about this, Tim? Or
That's right. This is headlined The Mirror, and this is dated March 21st. So actually just a couple of days ago. And so they have actually got the police involved in Mexico. They're hunting for a Nessie-style monster said to be living in the depths of a reservoir by a massive dam. The monster, which is more than 5,000 miles from Loch Ness, has reportedly been spotted by locals apparently swimming in the lake's deep waters. Now, so there's actually been some town hall gatherings. There was a photograph of what appears to be a dark body, which could be a fin or a curved back emerging from the waters of the Maiden Dam Basin. One local official said that they have ordered police to patrol the lake looking to get to the bottom of the sighting. Locals believe that, like Nessie's legend, the monster is a left-behind dinosaur, which is developed in isolation. That's what the locals believe. According to Atizapán civic leaders, people say that a Mexican Nessie lives at the bottom of the reservoir and protects the area. And authorities are going to have patrols around the lake until they solve the mystery is their goal. I love this statement right here in the article. Let me see if I can, find it. They said that some people are skeptical. Y'all bear with me as I pull this up. Yeah, here it is. Some, according to local media, believe the monster could be a huge crocodile, while others say it might simply be a large blob of poo from sewage water.
Gross.
What, no surgeon?
I wonder if Joe Dirt is there, because didn't that what he had from the airplane on the movie? I think.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie was funny.
Well,
Well,
maybe
that tells us a lot about that water, though. Yuck. Ooh.
That's right. Well, I mean, I'm curious to know, Blake, what parallels might you draw? But, you know, you are definitely an expert in Loch Ness and Nessie, and, you know, you've written a book about the Loch Ness Monster. Do you see any parallels there?
I see some. You know, it's one of the things. You get a large body of water in an area, and before you know it, you start hearing rumors and seeing things about, oh, there might be something there. And I'm by no means a skeptic. I'm one of those people that is a true believer through and through. And I'm interested to see what it is they pull out of this as far as the dinosaur aspect, because as you may or may not know, I mean, plesiosaurs, it's not really their kind of water, and certainly with it being you know, in the area that it's in, they're air breathers, you know. A lot of people think that they're dinosaurs. They're just aquatic marine reptiles. I mean, technically a plesiosaur, other than the word "saur" being in the name, they're really not dinosaurs. So it's one of those things. It's like, well, it could be, it couldn't be. I hope it's not a giant blob of poo. I don't know what is it he says in that in that movie. He says you got to keep on keeping on. You know, it's just you have to just keep pushing forward with it. And I think it's interesting because not too long ago, a similar thing happened in Lake Norman. My family's from North Carolina, and
Don't
apparently
say
a
that.
charter
I need
boat.
my parents to move there. Wait, don't tell this. What happened in Lake Norman?
there was a boat captain that was doing a charter boat, and he filmed several seconds of this thing surfacing, and basically, if I can say this word, raising utter hell on the surface of the water. And they filmed it for probably a good 20 or 30 seconds. It's huge, and his boat's 9 foot wide and about 20 feet long, and he said this object was bigger than his boat. So whatever it is big.
There goes all hope I had for getting my mom here. Ah.
Oops.
One interesting thing about that is that, you know, there is a theory that it could be some giant sturgeon, some of these lake monsters. Like, what do you think about that?
That would account for the size on some of them, but still, I think that a over 20 foot long, 9 foot wide sturgeon is pushing it. I mean, honestly, does Lake Norman have an adequate supply of fish, marine life, to support a creature with such a, pardon the bad pun here, monstrous appetite, which I'm sure it has? Because I mean, they say that Nessie actually would probably consume close to a ton of food a week, and I don't know. I've never been to Lake Norman, but I want to see Normie. Damn it! I want to go. I want to go check it out. I haven't made it to Scotland yet, but
You know what? It's a short drive from Board Camp Crystal Mine.
Yeah. We can stay there. We have our own.
Crystal Lake. I was like, no. Nope.
Blake, this is where you and I differ. I do not want to see Normie. Not ever.
Oh, come on. Where's your sense of adventure? Huh?
Not there. Not with the monster in the lake. It's
I
not
wish
there.
I wish that Mexico one would be true. That would be neat. Or it could be the crappiest story of the year. I don't know. Who knows?
Good one, Smitty. You know, I'm not even sure there's sturgeon in Lake Norman. There's sturgeon, I know, probably up around Becky in Idaho. Yes. And in Washington and Oregon, Canada, Alaska. I don't think there are sturgeon in Lake Norman. in North Carolina. Another problem I find with Lake Norman, for example, is that essentially it's, obviously we think of lakes being landlocked, but there is the possibility that Loch Ness does have a connection to the ocean, and so that opens up a whole realm of possibilities.
Yeah, it does. But think about this: if there was an opening, a flue of some sort in Loch Ness that led a giant sea creature out to sea, wouldn't there be more than just surface salination in the lake? There would be a tremendous amount of salt. I mean, I think honestly, my belief is what it is it's a primitive snake-like whale called a zeuglodon. That's really what I believe that Nessie is, because there's just not enough sightings of air breathing, because a plesiosaur would have to come up for air often, and not so much with the zeuglodon. And I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to have to be. Everybody says, "Oh, it's not possible." Go back to the Indian Ocean in 1938 when they netted the coelacanth, which they thought was extinct for 70 million years, and they found a whole damn nest of them right there. And it's like, hello,
Wow.
hello.
And we have a terrific comment from Divine Sovereign Messenger Healer. Listeners, if you haven't checked out his Facebook page, please do so. You will get a blessing. He says, I was at the lake in Scotland where Nessie was. That's in the town of Inverness, and it was such a magical place. These beings can move to dimensions unknown to man.
Oh.
And of course, we do often hear, on the paranormal side about this interdimensional travel with different cryptids. And Becky, I can't help but wonder, do you see any parallels there between the supernatural side of Bigfoot lore and other cryptids like Nessie?
I've seen like the Bigfoot. They're there one minute and then they're not, and I've seen them just disappear and then reappear. I wouldn't know so much about Nessie, but I mean, here in Idaho, you hear of sturgeon that they run into that 22 feet long, and you only see them once every 15 years or so when the lakes are really low. But I've had two different people that I've interviewed that have run into sturgeon that were easily that long at the bottom of the reservoirs, and they just lurk there until one day somebody runs into them. One time it was a rescue operation. A young boy had fallen out of a boat and drowned, and they were trying to retrieve the body, and one of the guys was down there, and he said he was using this huge lamp, and he said all of a sudden I got just this eerie feeling, like the hair raising up in the back of your neck, and he said I turned around and here was this being that's eye was as big as the lamp I was holding.
Oh my
He
God.
said it just stretched off into the distance, and he said it was about then I wet my wetsuit. And he said that was about when, came up. They did find the body eventually, but that was just one of the times when I've heard of that.
And
I know.
Cheryl, you've had some experiences, right, with things appearing and disappearing, and
Yeah, definitely with the Bigfoot phenomena and the ETs, aliens, lights, whatever as well. And we are of the opinion now, after experiencing this going on 6 years, that they must be interdimensional. Like you said, they just appear and disappear so quickly they can. And there doesn't seem to be any physical evidence anyway. And I don't know much about the sea creatures like or lake creatures like Nessie, but I've also heard stories of ships, people seeing ships actually, spacecraft actually diving into lakes or oceans or whatever. And I'm not very well read about it, but I've heard testimonies of people who've seen it. And it just makes you wonder. And can they shape shift? I've heard of that as well. Can some kind of interdimensional being manifest as a huge sea monster or a Bigfoot or an ET in flight? a little green man. I don't know. It's so fascinating. It's certainly fascinating. But the more we experience this phenomena, we do believe it's interdimensional. And I was telling you about those rocks that are crystals, actually. They're almost always crystals. They just like where we meet for our tours, they just like appear and drop on and bang on the floor. And, it startles us. And it's like, where are these coming from? At first we were thinking, is Bigfoot out there throwing them at us, where we're sitting? But we're of the opinion that maybe they are too. These lovely gifts that we're being given, maybe they are coming from another dimension. And I just want to wrap up by saying that we have met a gentleman who's come to visit here and is now a friend. And he has a master's degree in quantum physics. And he told us, it's hard to understand, but everything that's happening at your place here at Board Camp Crystal Mine is possible at the quantum level of existence. And that has to do with really other dimensions. So, and phasing in and out of our third dimension, how those dimensions are all interacting and the life forms that are associated with them. So anyway,
Well,
thanks
I think that's a great point. I think it's amazing how we have, all of us have such varied backgrounds, but yet there are so many strands and themes that connect all these topics. It's just amazing to me. We have a listener, Virgil Kane, that says hi from Manchester, England. So we have some listeners in Manchester, England tonight. And I think that is funny because Virgil followed it up with this comment. He says, actually, it's this one. He says, I can't even get arrested in this godforsaken town, not even a sniff, which is so I think Manchester would be a lovely place to hang out. But Virgil, I think, is getting tired of it. Virgil, we welcome you to the States if you ever get a chance. He says, the birds are really fussy around here. They seem to have their knickers glued on. I'm not even sure what that means, but I think it has something to do with cryptids. Listener Allison Mills says hello. Hi,
Hey,
Allison. And thank you. And Becky Cook, you had a comment from Divine Sovereign Messenger Healer, who has his own show on Facebook. He says, wow, beautiful lady, thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights. I appreciate you to be the magic of miracles for humanity. We need more of you. Bless you. And
Wonderful.
Allison Mills says she is from England as well. So we have a lot of folks from across the pond tuning in tonight.
Her and David hanging out? Is that what?
Great. Allison, are you in Manchester? And is it, do you find it more fun than virtual does?
Oh, well, that is fun. All right. Well, one other thing we wanted to dive into tonight is the Patterson Gimlin film, which, Becky, last time you were on, did you mention knowing one of these two gentlemen?
Oh, Bob Gimlin is amazing. Somebody asked me how old he is now. I think he's 86 or 87 this year. Wow. Such an outstanding gentleman and super good guy. Really good man.
And you know him personally?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
we sat down and talked a couple of times, sat down, had dinner, and just talked. He's just a pretty amazing guy. And the experience he had, in fact, someone showed a little piece of footage where they've actually stabilized that video where it looks like it was filmed with a steady hand instead of on horseback. And it was really cool to watch. And people will say, oh, yeah, they just made that up. No. He was 30 miles off a beaten road, and nearly killed them getting out of there because it was raining and the road was corroding and they had a trailer full of horses it was a mess. And you don't just show up way out there and have somebody show up with a suit too,
Right. Now, for those of you listening that are not familiar with what we are speaking about, this is the famous footage of Bigfoot walking, essentially. When was that filmed? Do you happen to know?
1967.
67. Okay.
October 25th. It was actually Bob Gimlin's birthday.
Oh.
Oh, shoot. I probably got that wrong. It was that week in October. I might have the date wrong, but it was actually his birthday when they saw it.
I think I actually know the date because Becky, you're going to love this. Look what I got in the mail here recently. Let me see if I can hold this up to the camera.
Oh, there you go. That
Nice.
is such a cool picture.
Thank you. October 20th, 1967. And see,
October
I
20th.
have,
I knew it was that during that week. I just couldn't remember which day.
and so I have Mr. Gimlin's signature there.
Oh, neat.
Bob is a super good guy and just salt of the earth. He'd still be breaking horses, except his wife convinced him he might break some bones.
Yeah.
And Tim, did you have a clip for us?
Yes, I have just a little short bit. This is credit Oregon Public Broadcasting, and they just had a little documentary. We might watch a couple of minutes of this if that's okay. But let me see if I can share my screen here. And I'm so proud of my Bob Gimlin signed Patty poster there. And by the way, for the folks that don't realize this, almost everyone is familiar with Roswell, the Roswell incident. And the Patterson Gimlin film is to cryptozoology, is to the Bigfoot world, essentially what the Roswell incident is to ufology and UFO lore. Okay, even if you believe the Roswell incident may or may not have happened, it doesn't mean aliens do not exist, right? Or extraterrestrials. And the same thing is true that we need to keep in mind for the Patterson Gimlin film. No matter what you think of it, it still doesn't detract from Bigfoots and Sasquatch and Yeti. But here's a little something from Oregon Public Broadcasting. Let me see if I can pull it up. I believe that I can. And here we go. Here we go.
A half-century ago, two former rodeo men went into the woods with a 16-millimeter camera and stumbled on Bigfoot.
When she's walking across a sandbar and spreads her arms out and looks at the camera, frame 352, that's become the Bigfoot icon for our culture.
The sighting of Patty, as she would later be known, at Bluff Creek in California, is one of the most famous reels in film history. Before the Patterson Gimlin film, named after its makers, the Sasquatch was a local Northwest legend. After, Bigfoot became an international celebrity. But look at this clip from the 2017 movie War for the Planet of the Apes. I mean, it's obvious now with the leaps in film and costume technology that this is just someone in an ape suit, right? A guy even passed a lie detector test on national TV, claiming he wore the suit.
About whether you were the Bigfoot shown in the 1967 Patterson film. Yes.
But the film continues to fascinate people. How confident are you this film's real?
At this point, I'm as confident as I can be, short of having stood on the sandbar with Roger and Bob and witnessed it myself.
That's Jeff Meldrum, a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State. He's known for being one of the few academics.
We need Jeff on this show too.
We really do. He's amazing.
Well, the thing about it is this film Gimlin shot that in 67. Planet of the Apes came out in 68. And there was nothing that Hollywood produced as realistic for that movie as what Gimlin had on his film. I mean, there was nothing. It looked like a 1968. There looked like costumes on Planet of the Apes looked like something I would have worn in the 80s when I was a kid.
With your mullet and your rat tail.
Oh, whatever. I didn't have a rat tail, but you see what I'm saying? It's amazing, especially the female anatomy of the costume. I don't know that they could have produced that exactly that way in 67.
No, that's right. And later on in that video, I didn't show it, Smitty, but Dr. Meldrum actually shows that video to his students at college. and he has them identify all the different musculature that you can see on Patty, right? And the thing is, you cannot see, for example, trapezius through a suit, okay? You cannot see back muscles. You cannot see the triceps. You cannot see biceps, okay? You cannot see all this different musculature, and his students were able to, pinpoint all these different anatomical, and like you said, there's the female perspective too, right? Like that, even if you were going to fake it, there's no logical reason why you would add on the complexity of making it female.
Well, just even on top of that, think about how much that would have cost for him to have made a suit in 1967 that was that realistic. I mean, I don't even know if I could afford one today that would be quite that good. I'm sure they could produce one now because that's been a long time ago, but it's ridiculous to think that that's not actually real. I think it's real, but
if I'm not mistaken, Smitty, didn't they go to John Chambers when he was retired and ask him if he had any knowledge of it?
I think so.
Because he worked on Planet of the Apes and some of the other stuff. Yeah.
I'll give you another good example. My uncle was told when I'm from North Mississippi, and of course, my uncle is in his 70s, and he was told by a man here, and we live in a very rural area, that they were at church one night. Not my uncle, but this other gentleman. He was a lot older than my uncle, and so he was, born early 1900s, and he said they were at church one night at a gospel meeting or revival, and they went out to smoke, and they got in the back of a wagon and were sitting there, and they said a Bigfoot walked out of the woods. And of course, back then you didn't have air conditioner or anything, so the doors of the church were open, and that the Bigfoot put his hands down on the porch of the church building and sat and watched the preacher for about 5 minutes, and just stood back up and walked down into the darkness because he never saw the men in the wagon. And so that man said that he was there when that happened. He saw that. So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We do have a question for Becky. Becky, Divine Cyber Messenger Healer wants to know, have you ever been able to video a Bigfoot?
No, I'm not that technology savvy. Plus, when I've seen him, it's like it's one of those things that you're not ever really prepared for, I guess. Yeah. We've taken pictures of the footprints we found just, short time after they were made, but not really ever taken a picture of them when they were right there. So
these questions that are coming in are coming from people that are in Manchester and Liverpool. I'm pretty sure it's almost 2 a.m. there. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, wait a second, it's pretty late here. These guys are up in the wee hours of the morning.
Hey, it's like Coast to Coast AM, CJ.
Studying their Bigfoot.
Doesn't even start till about midnight.
Yeah, I guess so. I can't ever say I listened to Coast AM. I'll put that on my bucket list. Things I need to do. All right. Well, we've talked Loch Ness and Bigfoot, and now it's time to move into UAPs, which is now the new term used for UFOs. Instead of unidentified flying objects, we're now calling them unidentified aerial phenomenon. And I think even that term has been updated to include submersible things as well. But we'll go ahead and stick with UAP for the moment. And recently, a very big thing happened. Jeremy Corbell, I hope I'm saying that. Yeah, Jeremy Corbell has been the voice and face for all things UAP as of recent. He's released several documentaries talking about things that have been seen. He has insider knowledge from many people, and he recently said that something else was seen. And Tim, I believe you have a clip of this. Yes.
That's right, I do. And just a little background. Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp from the aforementioned Coast to Coast AM have become the authorities on UFO and UAP information. Not the government, not the Pentagon, not the military. The interesting thing is, all the things that Jeremy Corbell has released has eventually been verified by the military. And he's released them long before they would ever admit it. And we know we would never be seeing this without folks on the inside leaking these things to George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. So we're really grateful for folks like George and Jeremy and all the things they do for disclosure and ufology. This particular video was shot by a U.S. drone over Baghdad, Iraq. And this is he actually only released the still images, and I combined it into a video. It's a very interesting video. It's known as the Baghdad Phantom, which is not to be confused, however, with the infamous Ukrainian UFO study that dubbed some of the UFOs and UAPs in their atmosphere as phantoms, because I messaged Jeremy Corbell myself, and he replied to us and said, no, this name Baghdad Phantom has nothing to do with the Ukrainian phantom name. So this was filmed on FLIR. Before I pull this up, I want to put what Cheryl saw out of her plane there. Really, I feel like it would be really scary to see that outside your plane. And we hypothesized, could this be an intercontinental ballistic missile? You know, what exactly could this be? But let's pull up from Jeremy Corbell now. And here it is, the Baghdad Phantom. This is about a 10-second clip. I want you to pay attention to the color of this, film from a FLIR, by the way, on a drone, and see if you notice anything trailing behind it. There's no sound. Let's watch that again. You're going to see a black object move across the screen near the bottom. Let's watch it again. And notice some sort of disturbance behind it. Now, immediate reaction might be, that looks like a missile and it is a war zone, but it didn't glow like a missile would on infrared. It was solid black, and I think that's why they used the word phantom. And I'm real curious, Cheryl, what do you think when you see what they're calling the Baghdad Phantom now compared to what you saw?
Well, what I saw did have the black tail. Like, I don't know. I'm not real familiar with all the science behind it. I don't know if that's considered just like exhaust, like fuel exhaust. I don't know how missiles work, if in fact that was a missile. But it looks very similar, in my opinion, except for the tail's a little bit different in, you know, so I don't know. But being on a commercial airlines, to have that thing so close right out the window, maybe 100 feet, I don't know, maybe 200 feet, but that was disturbing. And obviously this must have been also disturbing. So
yes.
So it's not like alien chemtrails or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. And that trail seemed kind of white, didn't you think? Or I don't know how the camera picked it up, but mine was just mine was just taken with my phone camera. So
yeah, it's such an incredible image that you caught out of your window. Honestly, my mind is still blown from that. I wonder, in the footage that you just showed, Tim. So can you tell me what Jeremy Corbell thought was so incredible about this particular shot, and then maybe I can have a better idea of what to say.
Yes, what he thought so incredible about this shot, first of all, everybody needs to know the military has officially classified this as a UAP. It is not officially a part of their UAP study as of now, at least so far as we know, but they amongst themselves have it classified as an unidentified aerial phenomenon. They have not classified it as a missile or a drone or any other known object, right? And of course, we just had over Super Bowl weekend. Immediately after we shoot down a Chinese spy balloon off the coast of the Carolinas, we shoot down 3 UFOs. I repeat, our military shot down 3 unidentified flying objects, one over Alaska, one over Lake Huron, one over Canada, and not a single other piece of information has come out about that. Not a single photo, video, image. There's been no wreckage obtained according to the military. According to the military, they have just given up the search for the wreckage for unidentified flying objects that they shot down, that they claim, by the way, were a threat to civilian aircraft, and that is the reason they shot down. The other significant thing about this, and by the way, Jeremy Corbell said explicitly, this is not a missile.
Okay.
Whatever it was picked up gave off no heat signatures whatsoever, was in control of its own navigation. It had no apparent means of propulsion, yet was propelling itself through the sky at a high rate of speed. And so these are the significant things about the Baghdad Phantom.
Did they get a speed on it? Did they get a speed reading on it at all, or?
I don't think any sort of speed reading has been officially determined.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard with just those images and having not been able to see or something. I don't even know how high that is altitude wise
Right.
or what the
Right.
location was. So just to see the pictures is really tough. I do think that there have been a lot of advancements in missile technology. And is there a chance that it is a missile that's not putting off some sort of heat signature that we would recognize from previous? I mean, possibly. But yeah, just being able to see those pictures, it's really tough to comment on.
Well, let me see what everybody
be.
thinks about this image. This image was captured and released by Jeremy Corbell also. It is more of an orb. It was also over a war zone. Keep in mind, we've had folks tell this show that our military is often engaging in fights with unidentified flying objects. Let's take a look at this object and see what everybody thinks about this. I believe this is known as the Mosul orb. And it should be popping up here. Or maybe that's
So
not going to work for us, but there's an orb. There it is, the Mosul orb. Everybody see that? It sort of looks just like a silver orb.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of different screens, so it's hard to pick out which one exactly you're wanting us to focus on here.
Sorry, you see the in the silver orb, it sort of seems to have a reflection on it, sort of reflecting the sun over a street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we've got all kinds of shapes and sizes here, and just, we don't know what's up there.
Yep.
We definitely don't. I certainly don't know what's up there. But I feel like we've talked to enough people that have a knowledge of what's up there to know that there's a lot going on that they are keeping from us or that they can't even explain, which makes it a perfect fit for All Things Unexplained. Well,
Yes.
based on what we have talked about tonight, Loch Ness Monster in Mexico and the Patterson-Gimlin film and new UAP footage, I would love to go back to each of our guests before we sign out. And what would you guys like to share with those that are tuning in that maybe aren't believers yet, or even to those that do believe? What would be your message to leave our listeners with before we sign off? I'll go to you first, Becky.
There are a lot of things in the world that we don't see that are still there. And they're around us, and they mean us no harm. Most of them don't mean us any harm, but they're there to either learn from us or we're to learn from them. And to me, I'll hear stories about the Bigfoot, and people say, oh, they're big and they're scary, and I think, well, I'm tall, I'm big, am I scary? I am scary to some people.
not to us.
But it's just one of those things. I guess the thing I've always told my kids is your mind is like a parachute. It works better if it's open. The more
That's awesome.
That's
the
terrific.
more you leave your mind open to what is, the more you'll learn. And the minute you get an opinion, you get proved wrong. Or you just cease to learn, either one.
We need a shirt with that tagline.
That's good.
That's fantastic. Did you come up with that, or did somebody say
No,
those
that
words
was-
to you
that
when you
was
were a
an
kid?
old stadium, this old one.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't heard that one before. Hey, Tim, we had a listener comment about something around the sun. Can you pull that back
Yes.
up? Have
Yes,
you
this
seen
comes
the
from
video of the
Giselle
flying-
Marina.
Yeah,
who
have you
I
seen the video of
believe
the
is a-
flying merkabas around the sun? I'm not sure that I'm saying that correctly. This is not something I've heard of. Have any of our guests here tonight heard of this?
I haven't heard of that one.
We're going to have to do some digging. I'm going to write that one down. All right. Well, coming to you, Blake, what would be your message to our listeners?
I kind of really want to jump on Becky's bandwagon because she kind of said it perfect. This is a large, very vast world we live in, and there are places that we have not even begun to scratch the surface as far as exploration and seeing. And a lake. You get in a lake and you swim in it, or you look in the sky, or you're out in the woods just trying to enjoy things. Be open-minded, because I think that some of these things we see can sense whether or not we're receptive, for lack of a better word, to their presence. And I think that kind of goes along with the interdimensional travel and some of the other things. Like, as far as the Loch Ness Monster is concerned, the age-old myth is that they come from a Kelpie, which was a shape-shifting creature that lived in the Scottish lochs that would entice drunken sailors and partiers in the form of either a beautiful woman or a horse. And I don't know why it was those two extremes, but it always was. And for the horse, they would jump on the horse's back, and then the horse would change shape mid swim and then plunge them to their deaths. And for the beautiful women, I never did hear anything about that, so I don't know how that ended for those folks. But as far as meeting the beautiful woman of the lake, but I really honestly think that it's out there. The X-Files is one of my favorite shows, and that tagline, "The truth is out there." Agent Mulder, Agent Scully said it best. And honestly, in my lifetime, I was born in '85. The year I was born, they found the Titanic. And for years, no one ever thought they would find that, let alone prove that it split in two before it ultimately came to rest, 6 miles, 2.5 miles down on the bottom of the ocean floor. So if they can find the Titanic, I think one day they'll find those 5 TBAF Avengers that went missing with Lieutenant Taylor at 45. I think they'll find the Loch Ness Monster. I think they'll find the Bigfoot. I think that we're already finding them. And I think that everybody out there just needs to keep their minds open. The truth is out there.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so many more people are looking now, I think. So many more people want to know. Even we had Avi Loeb on the show a few months ago. He's a astrophysicist, head astrophysicist at Harvard, and he has been privately funded to go search the bottom of an ocean for signs of extraterrestrial life from an object that flew into our solar system. So that's really, really cool. We hope to have him back on and find out more about that. And last but certainly not least, to Cheryl Murphy, what would be your thoughts for our listeners?
Well, I always tell people we are just normal people who ended up having a paranormal experience. And I just think that anybody can have that experience. I think a lot of people are seeking it, but what we've found, it usually happens when you're not looking for it, when you least expect it, something happens. And just be open. I love the parachute thing. I think I'll make a shirt with the parachute on there. I love it. But yeah, just be open, but also don't fret about it. Sometimes we get obsessed with, I want to have this experience. And yeah, of course, we may want to, but, just chill out. And if you believe in a higher power, I believe in the creator God of the Bible, for example. And anything, I just talk to him about it, and if I'm worried about anything, or even if I want something, it's like, hey, it'll come in time. Don't fret over it, but be open. And life is full of surprises. And like everybody commented, there's so much out there that's unknown and unexplained. And mankind, humankind, whatever you want to call it, gender specific, whatever, it's like we know so very little. But I think whatever is considered paranormal is that which science has yet to discover. So
yes,
I guess I'll end
beautifully
with that.
put. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we are so thankful to our guests for joining us this evening. We barely scratched the surface of what these wonderful, talented people do. But we have had all of them on the show before, so you can certainly go back into the All Things Unexplained vault, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and find our episodes with Blake Best, Becky Cook, and Cheryl Murphy. In fact, we've had each of you on more than once, I believe. Maybe Blake, this is just your second time, but I know that Becky and Cheryl have been on a couple of times, and we hope to have you guys on the show again. If you enjoyed our show, we do depend on listeners like you. You can support us on Venmo under the business accounts. We are at Bigfoot UFO. Dr. Mounce, anything else for us before we sign out?
Well, I just had to say this. I'm going to piggyback off something Blake said. He said the tagline of the X-Files was, "The truth is out there." Don't forget the other tagline of the X-Files, "Trust no one." Remember that.
Here I just built up all of our guests here. Trust our guests.
Except our guest. Be our guest and trust our guest, but no one else. But seriously, we all are incredibly brilliant creatures in of our own selves. We can all look up. We can all get off our phones. We can all look in the woods. We can go for a hike. We can go outside in the middle of the night and look up to the skies. You never know what you might see. Might be something from Elon Musk. It might be something from another galaxy. You just don't ever know. But there's only one way to find out. Trust your senses. Go out, find out for yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Smitty, throwing it to you. Take us on out of here.
Thank you for being with us, Blake and Becky and Cheryl. And kind of like Mounce said, make sure to kind of stay off the cell phones. I teach high school, and Bigfoot could be on fire running down the hall sometimes, and nobody would ever notice him because they're too busy looking at their cell phones.
Right.
And that's actually that's the truth. But it just seems like we're so obsessed with that, we miss out a lot on God's beauty of nature. Mm-hmm. And so we appreciate everyone listening, and be happy, be strange, and listen to All Things Unexplained. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
I just want to remind our guest, if you wouldn't mind, when I end the broadcast, if you could leave your computers in the studio, if you could stay in the studio until all our audio uploads. It should let you know when that happens. Okay, I appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Once again, be happy, be strange, and listen to All Things
I could easily edit that
He
part
never
out,
gets the
Smitty.
last word.
No,
he
got it
never
this
gets
time.
the last word.
He's
Good night,
like,
John Boy.
take us out. And then he talks for 10 more
I had to
minutes.
say it. I had to remind everybody to stay on.
Good night, John Boy.